How you doing, Mr. Smith? Charlie Waters. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure that you're taking the time to introduce yourself and give me an interview.
Charlie, thank you for coming in. Just want to ask you a few questions.
Absolutely.
Tell me about a time that you've made a difference.
One time that I've made a difference specifically would be in 2016. Actually, a Division I athlete. So I played at Stetson Baseball. I was on first base, and we were below 500 on a team, and we just made it into the sixth seed, which is the last seed of our conference tournament. And at that point in time, our coaches had given up on us because we weren't playing well, and we were the last seed in our conference, and we weren't doing well at all, for that matter. So it was pertinent for us to take a step and a stand to move on and move up and make things happen. And even though our morale was low and our team was low and we had no confidence, I found a way to motivate our team and make sure we won that conference tournament. So I took the lead and took the charge of that group and of that effort. And if you ask any of my teammates from now on, they'll say I was the individual that made the difference to end up winning a conference championship for the first time in 3 years.
Wow, very interesting. What do you do for fun?
I love movies. I love books. I really love movies and songs and music. A bunch of movies that I like. Unfortunately, I like Top Gun. It's one of my favorites, and I like Beauty and the Beast also, so I'm very diversified in that area.
What's your favorite book?
My favorite book is The Count of Monte Cristo. For that reason, I find it wonderful in the sense that you can find an idea of life, loss, revenge, failure, coming back from failure, and you can learn a lot because there's parts in that book where he takes it too far, and you learn that he takes it too far, and you want to make sure that you know the difference between revenge and making a good impact.
Wow, that's really interesting. If you could have lunch with anyone living or dead, who would it be and why?
Personally, from a personal level, within my family, my grandfather died when I was born. So as soon as I was born, I had a year of life between my grandfather being diagnosed with cancer and him dying. So I'd love to have lunch with him and see what life was like between that. And if it was to be a person of history, it would probably be Alexander the Great. He was a student of Aristotle, and I find Aristotle's work very interesting, and his philosophy and finding out the way he can move on, plus Alexander conquered the world, so it'd be interesting to find out that.
Wow. Tell me about a teacher you like and why.
A teacher I liked would have been, for my high school, was probably the most influential teacher, Coach Mark Barron. He was a geometry teacher, my math teacher, as well as a football coach for me. He was as well as a family friend. He was probably my first role model in the sense of mentor, and he was my first father away from home. He was able to teach me how to be a man in ways that my father couldn't, in ways that I would, not be neglected to listen to or, ignore. So it was nice to hear from somebody else and learn from somebody else about how to be a man and how to work hard and how to persevere and adapt from failure and what could go wrong and what I should really look forward to and approach in my future.
I know you want this job, but what would be your ideal job?
To be frank, I didn't know what I necessarily wanted to do until I spoke to you when we were at the golf outing a few weeks ago. At that moment, I realized that I knew I wanted to do finance. I knew I wanted to be involved with business and numbers and affecting people's money and how it works and how it moves around. But being a tax lawyer in the sense that you can take and find money in the government and use it to help people and use it to find ways that they might not be able to find it themselves is something that I found extremely interesting and something that I've actually learned about and researched about since we talked about it last. So it's something that I want to move forward with, and I feel like it's something that I finally found a passion in because my first love was baseball, and it's always been my first love. And now I finally found something that I'm very passionate about other than that, and that's exactly what we have, which is what I'm doing here today.
What skills do you have related to the requirements of this job?
For the requirements of this job's very hands-on, as in the companies that we are going to be recruiting and the companies that I'm going to have to go out and talk to are going to want to be hands-off, and I'm going to be able to take the role, take the charge that way. So the beautiful thing is that you're going to want my help, hopefully, and you're going to want me to take charge for myself and work with a team with yourself and with others and I can very well do that, but I can also make sure that the company that we're working for is very hands-off and they don't need to worry about what we're doing. So I can run that and be very, very I can be very helpful in moving that forward and taking the pace on and taking all the responsibilities on by myself, as well as learning the process for myself. So that's one of the skills I have. And another skill that I have would be communicating and talking to people and building relationships, building connections. And even if we don't make a connection with one client, I'll be able to get from that client to another client to another client, because I've grown up in 3 different states now. I grew up in Ohio. I went to school for 3 years in Florida. And now I've gone to school for another 2 years in Baltimore. And I made connections in all 3 of these places, and I found a way to make friends and business associates. Even though I haven't been working too many jobs, I've been able to make business associates and make life easier on myself and make connections throughout that.
Okay, Charlie, I have one more question for you. What distinguishes you from the other people I'm interviewing today?
What distinguishes me from the other people you're interviewing? One difference that you might not have is I was, in fact, as I mentioned before, a Division I athlete. And I played baseball. At 2 Division I schools, actually. I played at Towson University and Stetson University. One thing about that is baseball is a sport of failure, unfortunately. So you'll see how if you want to make it to the Hall of Fame in Major League Baseball, you have to succeed, 30% of the time, 3 times out of 10. So batting .300 is failing, 70% of the time. So what you have to take away from that is you're going to fail a lot, and you have to learn how to adapt with failure and move on from failure. But you also have to know what it takes to succeed in a grind, and it's not just a grind. It's an 160 game grind. That's an MLB game's 100. A season is 160 games, right? A college season is about 70 games, and then you go into summer ball, and then you go to fall ball. So there's really no time off. So no matter what, I'm always working, and I'm used to that hard work and that grind. I'm also used to adapting on the fly, making moves, making changes, making all kinds of things, and also finding a need and a hunger for success. I'm an extremely hungry person. No matter what the challenge is, I'm always going to be hungry and moving towards something and wanting the best for myself as well for people I'm working with and the company that I'm working with.
All right. Well, thank you, Charlie.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming in.